Let's turn our attention to something else. Let's talk about net zero. So Sam Armstrong and I have been discussing throughout the show the issues with net zero, the cost of net zero, the implications for our lives, our daily lives, and pretty much our future of this country, all rest on this insane, well, religious zealotry level policy. Let's talk about this with Rupert Darwall. He's the author of Green Tyranny and joins us now. Very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Julia.
Now, there's quite a lot to talk about here. I'm going to throw it all at you, and then you tell me where you think they're all lining. Because Ed Miliband has been criticised over his nonsense climate change warning, saying that, you know, this is the biggest threat to Britain's way of life. Sri and Duncan Smith just said Ed Miliband is the biggest threat to Britain's way of life. But there's talk about this £800 billion cost of the net zero plan. This was reported last week. I don't know why that's a surprise. 1 trillion was what a former Treasury reporter put it at. Today, the Met Office is saying that extreme weather is now the UK's new normal. And this comes as Ed Miliband says he wants to do an annual sort of state of the climate report to the House of Commons, and says this is the thing we should most be focusing on. What do you make of all of those claims?
Julia, I think it's absurd and ridiculous to put a few extra days of hot weather, a few extra days of heat wave as the single biggest problem Britain is facing. It is just so absurd. I think what it does show is that Ed Miliband is severely rattled about net zero, that the criticisms of net zero are hitting home, that the consequences of net zero in forcing up energy prices, in putting manufacturing industry, putting workers out of work, in fundamentally changing our lifestyle because of the increase in energy. I think that has all hit home, and that is why he's had recourse to these absurd claims he's making.
So doubling down, as we often see in religious zealots, they tend to double down rather than see the error of their ways. No, we know. I mean, this cost. I mean, this is the thing. They talk about the Met Office saying this extreme weather is our new normal. I mean. Yeah, I mean, was it last year we had the 40+ degrees or whatever? But there is an issue in terms of, like, it's obviously we're having heat waves, yes. But then we have some years, I remember very vividly, because I didn't have any outdoor space in my previous home. We moved to a home which had a big garden. And then I remember we had absolutely rotten summers for 2 years, absolutely miserable. That would have been around about 18 years ago. And I remember also everyone going, oh, wasn't it wonderful during lockdown, all this lovely weather, people who were lucky enough to have gardens. And then we had, I think it was a fairly rotten period, quite a lot of a couple of years ago. We never seem to remember when we have a rotten spring or a rotten summer. We only remember the good, well, the hot ones. But isn't that because actually we rather enjoy them? Are they getting worse, inverted commas, i.e. hotter, or is a lot of this down to how they are measured?
I think, I mean, this is pure climate alarmism, because it's not, I wouldn't even call it reasoning. The way it goes is the climate is changing, therefore we've got to decarbonise. Yeah. And there are lots of steps that are missing from that. The first of all, is it a net cost or a net benefit to Britain? Are we worse off from having a gently warmer climate? And that is a very open question. It's one that the government and the Met Office, actually the Met Office isn't competent to decide that. But is having having less cold winters, less frosty mornings, as against warmer summers, is that a net benefit or a net cost to Britain?
Can I put my hand up and say definitely a net benefit? But this is the thing. The solution should be, we're told you, people die. People die in the heat. Carry a bottle of water, people die. But the reality is, in every country and in every continent, even in Africa, which has extreme heat,
India.
More people die from cold than die from heat. Cold is the real, 9 out of 10 people who die from the extreme weather die from cold rather than heat. Heat is not the killer in the same way that cold is. But the countries that are much hotter than ours routinely, they've got this cunning solution, haven't they? They've got this thing called air conditioning. But the truth about air conditioning, you need to use electricity. So the solution to us getting hotter would be surely cheaper energy, so we could all fit air conditioning.
Yeah, it's called adaptation. And adaptation is a great no-no in climate alarmism, because it's what humans would always do, is adapt to change. And essentially, because that's the common sense response to changing weather, changing climate, that is ruled out, because what they insist on is radical decarbonisation. And of course, the other step is the belief that we live in a climate bubble, that somehow what we do with our emissions will change our weather, which is, of course, complete nonsense. And that, of course, is always omitted from what the Milibandistas are telling us about climate.
We're not going to affect, look, again, climate change. Now, climate changes, we know that. We're often told this, we are at record levels post the Industrial Revolution. Because we had a 20-year hiatus when we didn't see any global warming. Only in my lifetime, people were warning, and very serious scientists. This was, front page of, of Time magazine and The Economist, that we were heading for a global freeze. We were heading into a new ice age. We know that not just weather, but long-term climate, well, even 10, 20, 30 years ago, it changes, it oscillates. It's often to do with, ocean currents and solar flares and there's lots of different reasons. So we know that climate changes. Is it just getting warmer because we're coming out very slowly over thousands of years from a mini ice age? Or is it getting warmer because of man-made emissions? And if we got rid of man-made emissions, would that stop? I suppose is a crucial question there.
The reliance, the climate crowd have to rely on computer models to try and give some hint of that. And the problem is the climate models are incredibly erroneous. But the climate is an incredibly complex, chaotic system, which is, in essence, is impossible to model. You have to get the starting conditions right, which is you have to assume that the climate is in equilibrium, but the climate's never in equilibrium. So there are fundamental methodological problems with what they're doing. But even so, is the response to Britain going it alone and decarbonising the right thing to do? And we might be a net beneficiary from gentle warming, so that
I would say
farms in the south, farmland in the south of the country is being converted to becoming vineyards, and in doing that, the value increases. Is that a cost or a benefit? Clearly, it's a benefit. The British economy is better off.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my husband, who grew up in Stoke-on-Trent, he says he can remember very vividly in his childhood waking up to ice on the inside of the bedroom window. That was completely the norm in a winter. We're not seeing that. That's a good thing, isn't it? But also, crucially, there's loads of evidence, isn't there, that again, countries getting wealthier means they can adapt better, which means that, for instance, to any sort of climate issues we get, whether it's floods, whether it's droughts, whether it's fires, whatever, we're actually able to adapt more, and that's why you see far fewer deaths by 99% fall since the beginning of the 20th century. So over 120 years, we've seen a 99% fall because countries have got richer and they're able to adapt more to things. But also, crucially, I suppose it just comes down to whether or not you say, is it man-made climate change? Is it happening to the extent that it's a natural problem, or is it actually a net benefit with the greening of the planet, which we have seen over recent decades, which again produces more food? Just final question: why do you think people like Ed Miliband are just so wedded to the idea that this is a crisis and it's something that is caused by man and therefore within the control of man to stop? Why are they so wedded to that when so much evidence is there that it's not a crisis?
Well, environmentalism is an ideology. You've got to analyse it and think of it in terms of being an ideology. And it's replaced socialism or Marxism, as we know. Ed Miliband's father was a Marxist theoretician. It is, with the collapse of communism in the late 1980s, environmentalism is the new left of centre ideology. In fact, originally
that and hating Jews.
It was extreme. It was on the extreme right, and traditional socialists were very opposed to this because they understood that the people who would pay for environmentalism were working people. Yeah. And that remains the case.
And we see that,
working people who are the big losers.
And we see that the GMB union and others who are fighting against a lot of this madness because they know it's going to cost jobs. Lovely to talk to you, Rupert Darwall. Thank you very much indeed. A final quick word to Simon Armstrong on that.
My fear is that as much talk as we can all have here, it's not going to make any difference. This lot are mad. They are utterly mad. He is as devoted to this as anyone. And look,
this is the end is nigh. It's like the bloke on Oxford Street with the billboard saying the end is nigh.
But just in the last year, with Donald Trump's election, the United States is going to take a different path to us now. It's saying no, forget about all of
China,
this.
India, everyone else.
Even if they were entirely right, surely the fact that the world's biggest economies are now saying burn baby burn, dig baby dig, surely that has to give us pause to reflect. Apparently not.
No. We're going to carry on with the insanity and our economy is going to collapse, but well done, at least it'll be warm, we'll have nice summers. We won't be able to afford, aircon or even an ice cream, but we'll be happy.